So what if you're a great soldier? That's just a gift of God. Go home with your ships and comrades, lord it over your myrmidons. You're nothing to me. Your resentment means nothing. But let this be a warning. In the same way as Phoebus Apollo is robbing me of Chryseis, whom I propose to send off in my ship with my crew, I will come in person to your tent and take away your prize, fair-cheeked Briseis, just so you know how much greater I am than you, and to teach others to shrink from matching words with me and playing the equal to my face." So he spoke, and his words infuriated Achilles. In his manly chest his heart was torn whether to draw the sharp sword from his side, thrust his way through the crowd, and disembowel Agamemnon, or to control himself and check his angry impulse. These thoughts were racing through his mind, and he was just drawing his great sword from his sheath when Athena came down from the skies. The white-armed goddess Hera had sent her. Loving both men equally, Hera was concerned for them. Athena stood behind Achilles and seized him by his auburn hair. No one but Achilles was aware of her. The rest saw nothing. Achilles was amazed. He swung around and he knew her at once. So wonderful was the light from her eyes, and spoke winged words. "Why have you come here this time, daughter of Zeus, who drives the storm cloud? Is it to witness the outrage Agamemnon just committed? I tell you bluntly, and believe me, I mean it. He stands to pay for this arrogance with his life." The goddess, gray-eyed Athena, replied, "I came from the skies to cool your fury, if you will listen to me. The goddess, white-armed Hera, sent me because she feels equally close to both of you and is concerned for you. Come now, stop this fight and take your hand from your sword. Insult him with words instead, and tell him what you mean to do. I tell you this, and it's the truth. The day will come when splendid gifts 3 times as valuable as what he's taking will be laid at your feet to pay for this outrage. Stay your hand, and do as we tell you." Swift-footed Achilles replied and said, "Goddess, a man must respect what you and Hera say, however angry he may be. Better for him if he does. The gods listen to the man who goes along with them." He spoke, placed his heavy hand on the silver hilt, drove the long sword back into its scabbard, and complied with Athena, who then set out for Olympus and the palace of Zeus, who drives the storm cloud, where she rejoined the other gods. But Achilles did not curb his anger. He rounded on Agamemnon and said, "You drunkard, you with your dog's eyes and fawn's heart, you've never had the courage to arm yourself and go into battle with the men, let alone join us in an ambush. You'd sooner die. Safer by far, you find, to remain in camp, walking off with the prizes of anyone who speaks against you, a leader who grows fat on his own people. But then, you rule over nobodies. Otherwise, son of Atreus, this argument would have been your last. Now I tell you this, and I swear a solemn oath upon this staff in my hands, once cut from its stem in the hills, it can never put out leaves or twigs again. The bronze axe stripped it of its bark and foliage. It will sprout no more. The men, who in the name of Zeus safeguard our traditions, now hold it when they give judgment. By this staff, I solemnly swear that the day is coming when the Greeks, one and all, will miss Achilles badly, and you, in your despair, will be powerless to help them as they fall in droves to man-killing Hector. Then you will tear your heart out in remorse for disrespecting me, the best of the Greeks." So spoke the son of Peleus, and he flung down the staff with its golden studs and resumed his seat, leaving Agamemnon glaring at him from the other side. But now rose Nestor, eloquent Nestor, the clear-voiced orator from Pylos, whose speech flowed sweeter than honey off his tongue. He had already seen 2 generations of men born, grow up, and die in sacred Pylos, and now he ruled the 3rd. He had their interests at heart as he rose and addressed them. "What can I say? This is indeed enough to make Greece weep. How happy Priam and his sons would be, how all the Trojans would rejoice, if they could hear you at each other's throats, you, the 2 best Greeks when it comes to giving advice and fighting. Now listen to me. You are both younger than I. In my time, I've known better men than even you, and never did they take my words for granted. The finest men I have ever seen or shall see, men like Pirithous, Dryas, that fine captain, Canis and Exadius, and Polyphemus, royal prince, and Theseus, Aegis's boy. a match for the immortals. These were the strongest men ever bred on Earth, the strongest men who pitted themselves against the strongest enemies, the mountain-dwelling centaurs, whom they violently destroyed. These were the men I left my home in Pylos to join. I traveled far to meet them. They invited me personally, and I fought my own campaign. Not a soul on Earth today could live with those men in battle, and they listened to what I said and followed my advice. You too should do the same. It's for your own good to go along with what I tell you. You, Agamemnon, though you have the authority, do not rob Achilles of his girl. The Greek army gave her to him first. Let him keep his prize, and you, Achilles, give up your desire to cross swords with your leader. Through the authority he derives from Zeus, a leader who holds the scepter of power has more claim to our respect than anyone else. Even if you, with a goddess for a mother, are the better fighter, Agamemnon is your superior, since he rules more people. Agamemnon, cool your fury. I, Nestor, entreat you to put aside your anger against Achilles, who is a mighty tower of strength for every Greek in the hell of battle. Lord Agamemnon replied and said, True, old man, all you say is true. But this man here wants no superiors. He wants to dominate everyone, to lord it over everyone, and to give us each our orders, though I know one person who is not going to stand for that. What if the everlasting gods did make a spearman of him? Does that entitle him to hurl insults? Abruptly, godlike Achilles replied, A pathetic little coward I shall be called for sure if I give in to you at every point, no matter what you say. Issue your orders to the rest, don't tell me what to do. I'm done with taking your orders, and let me tell you something else, and you bear it in mind. I'm not going to fight you or anyone else with my bare hands for this girl's sake. You Greeks gave her to me, and now you take her back. But there's much more by my swift black ship that is mine, and you will take none of that against my will. Come on, just try. I want everyone here to see what happens. Your black blood will flow down my spear. Well, Achilles is pissed. I'd like to contextualize just what's going on here in more modern terms. So let's say you work retail sales and your company decides to hold a contest. Whatever sales team sells the most stuff in a day will win some prizes. Now you are the best salesman in the entire company and your team is the best team. So of course you win. Now when the prizes are put in front of you, there are 2 shiny new iPhones right on top. Your team decides that you should get one of the iPhones since you are the best salesperson. But your manager, who does nothing but sit on his ass in his office and bark orders, comes up and takes the second iPhone because he thinks he deserves it. Now you go about your day and kind of blow it off because, hey, that's what that guy does. But the company finds out that someone took the second iPhone and they start firing employees randomly, one by one. So at the next meeting, you bring it up and everyone tells your manager that he needs to return the iPhone. But your manager still thinks he deserves a prize for your hard work. And he decides that if he's going to return his iPhone, he wants yours as its replacement. Now this guy doesn't do anything, he just happens to be the manager. He gets paid more than you for doing less work, and he wants to take your iPhone. Now you can kind of see why Achilles is pissed. And I know what you're thinking. But Daskalos, human beings aren't iPhones, and in our modern society you would be correct. But you have to understand, we're not talking about a modern society here. We're talking about an ancient one, and in that society, if you were on the losing side of a battle, you were either killed or enslaved. People, especially women in this case, were commodities. Now you don't have to agree with that. At least I hope you don't agree with that. But you do have to understand that that's how the world worked back then. So the salesman iPhone thing is my way of taking that idea and putting it into more of a modern setting so you can understand why Achilles is so mad. Anyways, let's get back to the ride. The war of words was over. The 2 stood up and dismissed the assembly by the Greek ships. Achilles, with Meniotis' son Patroclus and his Myrmidon troops, made off to his hut and ships, while Agamemnon launched a swift ship into the water, chose 20 rowers, loaded the offering of cattle for sacrifice to the god, and seated fair-cheeked Chryseis on board. Quick-thinking Odysseus went as their leader, and, when everyone was aboard, they set off along the highways of the sea. Meanwhile, Agamemnon ordered the army to purify itself by bathing. When they had done this and thrown the dirty water into the waves, they offered perfect sacrifices of bulls and goats to Apollo on the shore of the murmuring sea. The smell of sacrifice, mixed with the curling smoke, went up into the sky. While the army was engaged on these duties in the camp, Agamemnon did not forget his quarrel with Achilles and the threat he made at the assembly. He spoke to Talthybius and Euripides, his heralds and busy attendants. "Go to Achilles' tent. Take fair-cheeked Briseis by the hand, and bring her here. If he refuses to let her go, I will come in force and fetch her myself, which will be all the worse for him." So he spoke, and bluntly dismissed them. The two made their unwilling way along the shore of the murmuring sea until they reached the Myrmidons' tents and ships, where they found Achilles himself sitting by his own black ship. It gave him no pleasure to see them. They came to a halt, too terrified and embarrassed to address him or ask anything, but he realized what was going on and spoke out. "Heralds, ambassadors of Zeus and men, welcome. Come in. My fight's not with you, but with Agamemnon, who sent you here to fetch the girl Briseis. Come, Olympian-born Patroclus, bring the girl out and hand her over to these men. I shall count on them to be my witness before the blessed gods, before men, and before the obstinate Agamemnon as well, if the Greeks ever need me again to save them from some terrible disaster." That man is raving mad, incapable of understanding the past or the future, let alone how the army is going to survive when it's fighting for its life by the ships. So he spoke, and Patroclus did as his dear companion had told him, brought out fair-cheeked Briseis from the tent, and gave her up to the two men. They made their way back along the line of the ships while the girl reluctantly went with them. Withdrawing from his men, Achilles broke into tears. He sat down by himself on the shore of the gray sea and looked out across the boundless ocean. Then, stretching out his arms, he poured out prayers to his mother. "Mother, since you, a goddess, bore me to live the briefest of lives, surely high-thundering Olympian Zeus owes me some measure of respect, but he pays me none, not even a little. Look how wide-ruling Agamemnon, son of Atreus, has dishonored me. He took my prize, made off with her in person, and now he has her for himself." So he spoke in tears, and his lady mother heard him where she sat in the depths of the sea with her old father. She rose swiftly from the gray water like a mist, came and sat by her weeping son, stroked him with her hand, and said, "My child, why these tears? Why this sorrow? Tell me, don't keep it to yourself. We must share it."